Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, streaming. I throw in a little bit of UFC in there now and again, too. And joining me today on this glorious day, he is filmmaker, one of the storytellers behind Tango Shalom, playing in film festivals around the world. He's the one and the only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
I love that we have these YouTube shows so I can have you can do shameless plugs for me all the time. I should hire you as my press agent.
I'll be your hype man. I'll be that guy that walks into a room before you saying, Robert's in the house. And then Robert comes around. That's my next job. And I'm going to be a professional hype man. That's going to be my next dream.
I got to tell you, though, every time I'm on the show now, it's only been 2 days. This is the second day. I get so excited seeing your new studio. I just love it. Love it. It's getting along. Like I said, it's not exactly what it's ultimately going to be, but give me a couple of months and give me a couple of weeks and months to get things together. And a special hello to everybody who's here already watching us live. Thank you for joining us here on this show, everybody. Listen, we do have a lot of things to talk about here today. But listen, before we get into anything else, why don't you guys take a second, if you haven't done so already, and click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to our YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on all the things that we've got going on here, and it's make you feel a little bit more plugged in and a part of our community as well. Don't forget, guys, also, there's an audio-only version of this show. The John Campea Show podcast is what it's called. You can't always have a YouTube video on in front of you, whether you're at work or at the gym or you're going for a walk, whatever. Go and subscribe to the John Campea Show podcast on your favorite podcasting app of choice, so it is there when you need it. All right, guys, listen, we do have a number of things to talk about here today. So let's get things started with a couple of off the top, shall we? And the first thing off the top that I want us to talk about here, just quickly, because I thought this was really nice, is this. There is a big existential crisis going on, Rob, right now, surrounding the whole idea of movie theaters and stuff like that. And listen, the future of the movie theater industry has been a bit of a question mark for the last 20 years, really. For the last 20 years, we've always wondered, and obviously then the pandemic comes, shuts everything down, makes it even worse. Well, my favorite filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg, who is a very, very pro movie theater guy. I just thought he made some really nice comments here, and I wanted to touch on them momentarily because I thought they were really nice, and I wanted to read them at length here. He was doing an interview with Empire, and he said the following about that. I'm going to read this at length because I think it's really quite good. And he wrote the following. In the current health crisis, where movie theaters are shuttered or attendance is drastically limited because of the global pandemic, I still have hope bordering on certainty that when it's safe, audiences will go back to the movies. I've always devoted myself to our movie-going community, to movie-going, as in leaving our homes to go to a theater and community, meaning a feeling of fellowship with others who have left their homes and are seated with us. In a movie theater, you watch movies with the significant others in your life, but also in the company of strangers. That's the magic. I often talk about that, Rob. That's the magic dust when it comes to movies. That's the magic we experience when we go out to see a movie or a play or a concert or a comedy act. We don't know who all the people are sitting around us, but when the experience makes us laugh or cry, cheer or contemplate, and then when the lights come up and we leave our seats, the people with whom we head out into the real world don't feel like complete strangers anymore. We've become a community, alike in heart and spirit, or at any rate, alike in having shared for a couple of hours a powerful experience, Spielberg continued. That brief interval in a theater doesn't erase many things that divide us, race or class or belief or gender or politics, but our country and our world feel less divided, less fractured, after a congregation of strangers have laughed, cried, jumped out of their seats together, all at the same time. Art asks us to be aware of the particular and the universal, both at once. And that's why, of all the things that have potential to unite us, none is more powerful than the communal experience of the arts. I want to read that last line again. And that is why, of all the things that have the potential to unite us, none is more powerful than the communal experience of the arts. Rob, we were talking on this show not too long ago about, the movie going experience. And I've talked for a long time about the fact that
people ask me, John, why do you love the theater so much? And the reason I love the theater so much is because Rob, I've said this many times. Every day before the pandemic that I would wake up in the morning, it was a good day if I knew I was going to the movies that day, and we've talked about, you can watch movies at home. Last night, I watched The Little Things. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. You can watch movies at home, and that's great and that's fine. But there's a dimension of magic that comes when you watch a movie in the theaters. And, we've talked about as that magic dust. Like when you're in a theater, when you're watching Endgame at home and, Cap hears in his earpiece on your left and the portals open up. It's a great moment. It's a great moment if you're watching at home, but it's nothing. It's insignificant next to that experience of being in a movie theater with 400 other people and you hear on your left and the portals open and all of you complete strangers, whatever, like all together, the excitement rushes through you and you cheer together and blah, blah, or you're sitting in a great comedy and, the lead actress says something that completely unexpected and all of you together are laughing. It's that element that cannot be replicated. And I've always said, regardless of gender, political persuasion, sexual orientation, economical background, whatever, the one thing we all come together on the movies, and the movie theater kind of becomes the church. The movie theater is the church. And again, listen, I know there's not a lot of people, or there are some people who don't have that same appreciation of that temple that I do, and that's fine and that's cool. But that's why it's so special to me. And I love these comments from Steven Spielberg. Anyway, Rob, you hear these comments from Spielberg. What are your thoughts?
I completely agree with him. I think one of the I've been going to movies since I was a little kid, and I think for me, what a movie theater represents is not just, this kind of sounds strange, but enlightenment, because not only does it provide an emotional experience, but I've learned so much about the world. Growing up in Seattle and going to the International Film Festival there, as a teenager, I was exposed to movies from all over the world. And they really meant something to me, but because I learned so much about different cultures and different ways of life. And then I was exposed to different kinds of stories. And then not only that, but the stories that we get here from Hollywood, whether it was War of the Worlds when I was 5 years old that just left me shook, to seeing Star Wars in '77, which blew my mind, to seeing movies like All That Jazz, which still stay with me, 42 years later. And I think that they mean so much in so many different ways to me, and I think to so many other people around the world. And like you said, John, it's that collective experience and realizing when you're in a movie theater and you have a reaction that other people share with you, you realize that we are one people. We are one, human beings are one race of creature. And the fact that people from all walks of life that don't know each other, that could be vastly different as people outside of the movie theater, different races, different religions. Oh, there's only one race, but different religions, different points of view, different political affiliations. You can all sit down in a movie like Endgame. And when you hear Sam Wilson say on your left, the entire theater, young, old, it doesn't matter. Everybody has the same response. And that's an incredible feeling.
I agree. Anyway, love these comments by Steven Spielberg. Question is for you guys. You hear Steven Spielberg's, to me, the greatest filmmaker of all time. His poetic words. What are your thoughts on that? Jump down into the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. Okay, guys. With that down, let's talk about one other thing. One of the movies that I have really been looking forward to, like a lot, especially once the trailer came out. Rob, I know you and I both had this feeling. I remember us talking about the trailer for the new Denzel Washington, Academy Award winner Rami Malek, and Academy Award winner Jared Leto. I mean, it's 3 Academy Award winners starring in it. The Little Things. It looked awesome. It looked like this new era's Seven, or Along Came a Spider, or something like that. These movies I just have an absolute love for. And it came out a couple days ago. Obviously, I've been in the middle of a move, so I haven't had a chance to sit down. But last night, my wife Ann and I sat down to watch The Little Things. And special thanks to Sean's World, who sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Sean's World. We decided to sit down and watch it. I was so excited. We got dinner ready first. Didn't start the movie till we had everything down on the coffee table in front of the TV, and we're ready to watch The Little Things. And Rob, by the way, on top of all those stars, John Lee Hancock, who directed like Blindside and like wrote a lot of great movies. He directed it, which is great. And I got on Twitter last night and I said this after watching it. It's been a long time since I've seen a movie that had so much potential and that I was so excited about that so completely and utterly let me down. This movie, The Little Things, is such a waste of potential. It is painfully slow. And slow is fine if you have pace. Slow is fine if you have pace. There's no sense of pace to this movie. There's a couple of neat little ideas. Denzel's very good in it. Jared Leto is very good in it. I was telling you before we started today, Rob, Rami Malek, who, was just played Freddie Mercury and won an Academy Award, and I can't wait to see him in the Bond film. Everybody's got a bad day at the office. I think this was Rami Malek's bad day at the office. I didn't think he was particularly good in this movie, but it was a tremendous group of talent that was let down by what I think was a pretty subpar script. And you know what I like in the experience on too, Rob? Do you remember that movie? Ryan Gosling, Sean Penn, Josh Brolin, Emma Stone, called Gangster Squad. Do you remember that?
Yep.
This gave me the same feeling as Gangster Squad. I thought Gangster Squad looked like it was going to be an Oscar kind of film. I was so excited about Gangster Squad, and I saw it, and I'm like, what the hell was that? And this kind of reminds me of that experience. I thought this movie was a complete disappointment. Utter waste of time. And like near the end, I won't give total spoilers away here, but the Malik character, who's supposed to be this really smart cop, makes this radical succession of unbelievably dumb decisions. And I'm like, no, this character wouldn't do that. And this character would certainly not do that. And this character we just spent 2 hours getting to know would absolutely not do that. And it was just, I don't know what other word to use, Rob, other than complete disappointment. Disappointment's my word of the day. Anyway, Rob, I know you had a chance to watch The Little Things. I don't know. Did you see something more redeemable about it than me? What did you think about it?
Well,
you too.
I have to tell you, we all have our favorite genres. And one of my favorite genres is serial. I love stories about serial killers or weird psychopathy and all kinds of bizarre behavior. I love stories like that. I was really looking forward to this. And as we all know, if you've read the story, John Lee Hancock wrote this script 30 years ago and it was going to get made back then, but it didn't. And the thing is, in the intervening years since he wrote this script, we've had the Alex Cross adaptations like Kiss the Girls and Along Came a Spider. We've had the granddaddy of all, maybe Silence of the Lambs. And then, of course, Seven, and even Russell Mulcahy's ripoff of Seven Resurrection that I like, and every episode of CSI, SVU, whatever. And if you're going to delve into this murky water again, you need to tell us a story that adds to what we've been getting for the last 30 years. And this felt like I was watching a special extended edition of a Dick Wolf procedural on CBS. And while I love the performances, I felt like there was, like you said, there was about 45 minutes of story stretched out to 2 hours. And I thought Rami Malek was a little miscast. It's not that his performance was bad. I just didn't believe him. I didn't believe him in the role that he was supposed to be playing. And I give it up to Warner Brothers for going after a mid-range adult film that wasn't a franchise property. But I just think that, man, there's this, like you said, it just really let me down. I felt like I was looking for something and it just didn't deliver. It didn't deliver on the promise. And even our killer, I mean, a serial killer movie is only as good as the killer. Jared Leto was fine, basically playing the same character he was playing in Blade Runner 2049, but he didn't do anything. You don't even see any of these murders. They're all after the fact, and you don't really. I mean, they portray this killer to be some kind of years long murdering mastermind, and I didn't believe him as that character. And I'm like, I just let me down. I was bummed.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember about an hour into it, Ann and I contemplated just turning it off. But I thought, we've come this far. I should probably get it through to the end at this point. But anyway, guys, I wish I could recommend it. You know how excited I've been for this movie. It just did not work for me. What does work for me is Adam Muhammad sends in a super chat in the live chat. Thank you for that, Adam. We also get one from Michael Bochar, who sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks for that, Michael. So anyway, the question is for you guys. Have you had a chance to watch The Little Things yet? If so, what did you guys think of it? Did you think it was a lot better than Robin? Did you guys have a different experience with it than we did? Did you agree with us? Maybe somewhere in the middle? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's do one more off the top before we get to our main topics here on a bit more of a somber note. You guys have probably seen in the news feeds and on Twitter and all that kind of stuff already. But legendary actor Hal Holbrook has passed away at the age of 95. And Rob, you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. One of the most incredible things about Mr. Holbrook is when you look at him, you realize this dude didn't age a day for like 30 years. It's like 30 years ago, he drank some Mystic unicorn blood and he just looked the same for like 30 years, which was amazing. He definitely had one of the great careers. I mean, he constantly worked. I mean, we hear in this business, Rob, we hear and see so many actors, for 5 years they were pretty hot, or for whatever time they have. This guy has worked and worked consistently for the lifetime of myself and the lifetime of my father, which is just amazing. He was always a joy to see on screen, and he sadly passes away at the age of 95. Rob, when you think about Hal Holbrook, what do you think about?
Well, I first of all, I think about the priest character he played in John Carpenter's The Fog, which I loved. And then I was telling you earlier, he's in Peter Hyams' movie Capricorn 1, which was a 70s conspiracy thriller about a Mars landing that they fake, that played into the whole idea of we fake the moon landings. And he gives some great soliloquies in there, but he was just, I loved him as an actor. He could do so many things. He was a very versatile guy, and he will be missed. But you know what? Whenever I see someone like him who he never really stopped working and he lived to be 95, to me, I will always think of him now as being a man who it was a life well lived, and I think that's something to be celebrated, even though he will be missed.
He will be missed, and again, he lived a full life, had a marvelous career, and his work will make him immortalized. Of course, Hal Holbrook passing away at the age of 95. All right, guys. With all that down, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with our main topics. Whenever you come across a big issue, big topic, or big story that you think should be a main topic here in the John Campea Show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. That down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by James Argenta, who writes, the second trailer for Flash Season 7, maybe final season, debuted today. This led me to think, with the low ratings of Batwoman and Legends, final seasons of Black Lightning and Supergirl, and Berlanti already working on shows on HBO Max, are we in the final stages of the Arrowverse on the CW? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The new trailer came out for the Flash Season 7. Of course, we got our first look at Flash Season 7 back at DC Fandom. I think they released the first trailer for it then. They released a 1-minute look at it yesterday, and a special shout out to Brian Misfund, who sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you for that, Brian. And listen, if you've watched this show for any period of time, you know I'm a big fan of this show. I like The Flash very, very much. There was that one season, and I'm trying to remember the name of the character with the brain guy. Anyway, I can't remember the name of the character in it. DeVoe, that was it. The one season with DeVoe that I thought was pretty weak. But other than that season, I really liked this show. And I thought it was a bad idea. Like when they first announced that they were going to do this Flash show, I thought it was a bad idea. And then I watched that season 1 and I'm like, you know what? This is really good. And I've enjoyed it all the way through. Gotta say, I didn't like the new trailers for the new season. They look rather boring to me, to be honest with you. I'm rather a little bit bored because part of the things he says in is like, how can I beat insert name of villain here when they're faster than me? Hasn't that been like the premise of 5 of the 7 seasons of The Flash? How can I possibly beat insert name of random villain when I don't have enough speed? I mean, this is the same thing again and again. So whatever. But it is interesting what you bring up in the topic, though, that to me is really the bigger question, which is when we now sit back and look at what's going on in the CW Arrowverse, is the whole thing getting ready to wrap up? Maybe. Now, this is what we talked about when it comes to The Flash itself and its new trailer. In Entertainment Weekly, they wrote, in the promo above, because the video is in there, Barry struggles to keep the faith as he prepares to face the all-powerful Mirror Mistress with his speed at 1%. On the upside, Caitlin/Killer Frost, Danielle Panbaker, returns earlier than planned. She was originally written out at the end of season 6 for maternity leave. And Barry appears to eventually open a portal to the Mirrorverse, which puts him one step closer to reuniting with a traumatized Iris. Curiously, the trailer also hints that Tom Cavanaugh will be pulling double duty once again when the show returns. Of course, Tom Cavanaugh played Reverse Flash, one of the strongest things about this show, to be honest with you. I love Tom Cavanaugh on this show. Good Canadian kid, by the way, Rob, Tom Cavanaugh. Just want to throw that out there. And I think he's been great in this show. But you do bring up some great points. Supergirl's now wrapping up. Black Lightning, which was another one that I thought looked kind of dumb, and then I ended up really liking a lot. That's wrapping up. Legends of Tomorrow has always been a kind of on the edge show. Ratings dropping and falling. The Batwoman ratings were never good, but they've fallen through the floor. Arrow is obviously gone. And now it looks like The Flash is wrapping up. And Rob, they bring up a great point. Now, Greg Berlanti is now kind of half transitioned over, and he's getting ready to do, stuff on HBO Max. And so I will say this. Yeah, I think 2 years from now, and I could be completely wrong about this. I have no insider information whatsoever. This is me speculating based on what information we have in front of us. I think 2 years from now, there's no longer going to be a DC presence on CW. I think they are moving. We've talked ad nauseum about HBO Max being really desperate right now. I think they do want to focus all their attentions over there. The CW Arrowverse was great for a while. I think most fans kind of acknowledge that those great days of the CW Arrowverse are in the rearview mirror now. They're behind us. And I'll be surprised if 2 years from now there's any DC shows left on CW. That's my thoughts right now. Rob, you take a look at the situation. What do you think about all this?
I think you're probably not wrong. I mean, the CW, the Arrowverse, they had a great run.
Yes, they did.
They've done a lot of really fun shows. Those crossovers were epic, especially the Earth X one we always talk about. I think that, there's a great legacy there. And I know Berlanti, they're doing a Green Lantern series and all that, and they can probably stretch their wings a little bit more and tell different kinds of stories. And I think that's probably for the best.
What did you think about the new trailer for Flash?
Again, it just seems like kind of been there, done that. I mean, I really like Grant as the Flash, and
so do I.
I think he's great, and I really actually like most of the cast. I think the cast for that show is good, and everybody. But it's like, how many times are we going to watch? I think the show has demonstrated it's really hard to do an ongoing series with the Flash. You can only tell so many stories of the Scarlet Speedster before you run out of things to say.
Yeah. So, and hey, listen, every show comes to an end. And I think if season 7 is the final season, we don't know that it is. I'm kind of feeling like it is, but if season 7 ends up being the final season, even if it's a bad season, and I'm not saying it will be, I still think even if season 7 is bad, this is the final season, when we look back, I think The Flash, the show, you can't look at it as anything other than a success. It was a successful show. And it did things that a lot of doubters, like me, at first I thought it was a dumb idea, and it turned out to be really great. So, and when the Arrowverse does end, you're right, Rob, I think you have to look back and say, you know what? That had a surprisingly good run. Yeah. And it had a good amount of fans. So there's that. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? Number one, what did you think about the new trailer for season 7 of Flash? And what are you guys thinking is the ultimate fate here of the CW Arrowverse? Do you think it's still got another 5-6 years left in it? Do you think maybe it's kind of drawing to a close? Maybe this new Superman show is the last kind of hurrah for them? Maybe not. Maybe you think they still got a long future. Whatever it is you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Rodney Benoit, who writes, "Hey, John, I wanted to chime in on the discussion you were having on the WandaVision videos about what happened to people who were victims of the blip while on a plane or a boat." This has been a topic of discussion ever since Endgame, or on a boat. "I think those people die because in episode 4 of WandaVision, we see in the beginning when people in the hospital came back from the blip, it was disorganized chaos. It was havoc. Life is messy, and being in the wrong place at the wrong time is real in life. What are your thoughts?" Okay, thanks a lot for saying that in, Rodney. And yes, like I said, this has been a big issue that has been around since Endgame, Rob. Ever since Endgame and Hulk snaps his fingers and brings everybody back from the blip, there has been this ongoing discussion and debate about, well, what happens if somebody was on a transatlantic flight 20,000 feet above sea level, and they were in a plane when they blipped? When Hulk brings them back, they're going to appear 20,000 feet above the water, and they're going to fall to their death. What happens if they were in an elevator, Rob? What happens if some poor soul was in an elevator, and when they got blipped, and they come back now, and the elevator's not in the right spot, and now they appear on the 30th floor of a building in a long, empty elevator shaft, and they fall to their death? Now, this has come up again, obviously, since WandaVision episode 4. And there's been some good back and forth debate going on. And my position on this, Rob, has always been this. I believe that you came back in the context that you were snapped away. So my thought on this has always been, if you were on a flight in seat 3A when the blip happened, you got taken away, then when Hulk unblipped you, I don't think you came back at that same point in the sky. I think you came back in seat 3A. To which some people say, "But John, what happens if somebody else is sitting in seat 3A? Well, yeah, but that would be the same thing the other way around. Like if you just came back in the exact spot you're at, if somebody was blipped standing on the corner of King and Main getting ready to cross the street, what happens if somebody else is standing there when the unblipping happens, right? So it's the same problem, right? So I believe you come back in the context. So there's been this big debate going on, but Rob, I can tell you definitively, my theory is right. And WandaVision episode 4 proved it. Because if you go back into WandaVision episode 4 and you watch the unsnapping happening in the hospital with all the chaos, one of the people who comes back is an older guy. There's a gurney being pushed down the hallway that's empty and all the chaos. And some guy just reappears back in the gurney that's being pushed along and pushed away. Are you telling me that guy just happened to be in that exact spot hovering above the ground when he was blipped? No, he was probably in that gurney, and that gurney was probably on another floor, but now he reappears back in the gurney. Rob, I am 100% convinced that that one moment in WandaVision episode 4 proved my theory that you didn't come back in the exact spot, you came back in the right context. Now, I talked about that on my WandaVision spoiler review, and it sparked a lot of debate. But then what happened is a bunch of people emailed me this article that further enforced my theory, which was Kevin Feige himself. I didn't realize this before. Kevin Feige himself has verified my theory that you come back safely in the context you were in. This comes to us. This is from Den of Geek, but Avengers Endgame, Kevin Feige. Now, this was after Endgame, so this was ages ago.
Right.
Kevin Feige confirms mid-air snap victims are okay. They're okay, Rob. This is what Kevin Feige said. He said, speaking during an exclusive post-screening Empire Q&A last week, Kevin Feige reassured everyone that the aerial survivors of the blip, which I call the snap, were indeed safe and sound. If people were in an airplane when they were dusted, they didn't return at 35,000 feet, Kevin Feige said. They didn't fall to their deaths because Smart Hulk is smart. And when he snapped, you can wish for whatever you want. You can wish for everybody to come back safely. Done, says Kevin Feige. Because this Hulk was Smart Hulk, Kevin Feige says, and he was smart enough. And by the way, Sean's World sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Sean's World. Smart Hulk was smart enough to snap them all back into safe contexts wherever they were. So, Rob, to me, that puts this whole discussion and this whole thing to bed, even though I thought the guy in the hospital in episode 4 proved it already. But this puts this whole to bed. But honestly, Rob, I can't remember. What has your position been in all this about where do the safety and the circumstances of people coming back from the blip? What's your thoughts been?
Well, I remember when I first saw Endgame and afterwards having conversations with people, and I was having conversations with a friend of mine about what would be some of the most awkward, what if you're a woman who's delivering, you're having a baby, and the baby's halfway out, and you disappear, but your baby sticks around. And can you imagine if you come back in that same context, and you're in the middle of giving birth, you come back, you think you're giving birth, and it's 5 years later, and your kid's 5 years old, stuff like that. But I think that I agree with you. And I agree with Kevin Feige. I mean, it's the spirit of when, contextually, everybody would be safe. Maybe you would wind up at the airport terminal that you got on the plane at, or something like that. I mean, I do love the fact, though, there's nothing better about being a fan than being able to have long, ongoing debates about the logistics of people coming back from Thanos' snap. Because it's not just that Thanos can do this and take away half the beings in the universe, but when they come back, we can come up with 100,000 different scenarios about what people were doing when they disappeared and when they came back. And I think that shows how powerful these stories, even though, they're comic book adaptations, the reason we keep coming back to them is they remain compelling, after all this time. That's why I know you don't like time travel stories that much, but the ramifications of time travel and the grandfather paradox, we're still talking about that. We've been talking about it for 100 years. And we'll probably talk about it for 100 more. But I think that the Thanos snap, the returning back from the snapping, is one of those great ongoing fan debates that will never end.
You know what's great about it, too? This is a great example of how we should never take life too seriously. No. Because here we are, grown-ass men and women, not just us two on camera, but all you, the rest of you guys watching, grown-ass who, we own cars. Some of you and some of us have children. We have real responsibilities. And here we are talking about when the magical space stones brought back by the green-skinned man, where did people appear? And here we are making serious discussions about what happened to these people who came back. And I kind of love it. Anyway, guys, question is for you. Where are you on this whole issue of where did people come back? I think this issue is now put to bed. Kevin Feige himself has confirmed it. I thought episode 4 of WandaVision confirmed it. Anyway, the question is, guys, what do you think about that? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts on this very important, serious issue of the day. What happened to the people who were on an airplane when they got snapped away by the purple-skinned man and brought back by the green-skinned man? That's the important issue today. Jump on down there and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. Oh, that's glorious. Okay, next up. I don't even know where to go from that. Let's move on to main topic number 3, shall we? And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by the Cinemic. And the Cinemic writes, "Hey, John and Rob, get ready for those tossed salad and scrambled eggs. According to multiple reports, Paramount Plus is eyeing to revive the hit sitcom Frasier. Kelsey Grammer is in talks to reprise the iconic character of Dr. Frasier Crane, as well as the other cast members, sans the late John Mahoney, obviously, who might also return in some capacity. What are your thoughts?" Okay, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, Rob, I remember we talked about this. There was some discussion, some whispers about maybe bringing back Frasier again, because bringing back and reviving old series has been all the rage. Whether it's X-Files coming back, Will and Grace coming back, Roseanne, now known as The Connors, coming back. I mean, it's been all the rage, including with movies. They've been doing the same thing with movies. But I remember a while ago, there was some talk about Frasier coming back. And by the way, Tumbling Tornado in the live chat put in a super chat badge. Thank you for that, Tumbling. There's been a lot of talk about Frasier. And anyway, this comes to us from the good folks over at Variety, who writes, "Series star Kelsey Grammer has been trying to get the revived show off the ground for some time, according to sources. One potential hangup for the show, though, is the cost. After all, Frasier was a successful spin-off of the successful show Cheers, which both shows costing a pretty penny by the time they went off the air. Grammer and any other stars from the original series who would return for the revival would no doubt expect pay comparable to what they were making at the time of the show ended." So that comes to us from Variety, and of course, Paramount Plus is looking at launching this thing up. I gotta disagree with the theory there that the Variety writer has that, if they bring this back, then Kelsey Grammer and all the other cast of Frasier are going to want the same salary they had when Frasier was one of the most popular series on TV over a decade ago. I mean, Rob, I can't imagine. I've got to think that Kelsey Grammer and everybody else involved with the show have to understand that now this is not the same context. I can't believe they would be insisting for the same kind of scale of money that they were getting before. Now, if they do 1 or 2 seasons of it and it's a big mega hit again and it's a top 5 show, well, then maybe they'll want their money. But getting back to the principle of this, Frasier was a delightful comedy. I mean, it was a really great, I mean, some people think it was better than the show it was spun off from, which was Cheers. There are some people think it was an even better show. And I'm actually a big fan of Kelsey Grammer, just in general. I think the dude's really great. I loved him as Beast.
Yep.
Rob, I loved him as Dr. Hank McCoy in X-Men. I thought he was really great hearing that voice and then seeing him come back to play it again at the end of Days of Future Past. I thought that was awesome. So yeah, dude, listen, sign me up. I think this sounds great. Rob, what do you think about them reviving Frasier for Paramount Plus?
Well, I kind of, if there's a reason, if they can incorporate, like when they brought Will and Grace back, for instance, the world had changed since it had left the air. And there's more things to comment on. And I guess bringing back Frasier, you like these characters, and I can see why people enjoy it. It's familiar. It's a recognizable IP that people already know and love. But I would hope that if they bring it back, that they have something more to say. We're getting all these revivals. Sex and the City is coming back. Frasier's coming back. And I think of a lot of these shows as being a part of a certain time. Like the era in which they come out. And I think in a way, kind of sometimes bringing back these popular franchises years later, it's almost like Dead Man Walking. It's sort of this crass attempt. We can't create anything new, so let's bring back these big hits again. And it's kind of weird. But if they have something to say, if the creators think, you know what, we have a new spin on it. We live in a very different world than the world Frasier Crane left the last time we saw him on his own show. And if there's a way in, then I'm all for it. But I think we also have a tendency to be stuck and moving forward. It's hard to make a new show. It's much easier to go back and play with that nostalgia and get those characters back.
Is that easier, though? Is that easier? I'm not convinced that it is. I mean, when you look at the television landscape today as opposed to when Frasier was on, there are so many more avenues and networks and formats for new content to go out there. And there's such a huge demand of content. And we have a lot of new shows coming all the time. And I don't know that it is particularly easier to try to revive something from before. I mean, I think Ben Stiller's Starsky and Hutch kind of proves that. It ain't easy to try to go back and revive that stuff at time. But, you bring up, what do you say? Is there ever a better time? Who was somebody in our live chat, Kimberly G85 in our live chat brings up a great point. Mental health. I mean, we're talking about Dr. Frasier Crane, who's there to try to help you. And has it ever been more important than today about addressing issues of mental health and stuff like that? I think that could be huge. But I would want to throw out one more thing on this, Rob. And maybe don't represent the majority of people, but while I love great television drama, whether it's in Breaking Bad or whether it's a Game of Thrones or things like that, I watch television a little bit differently than I watch movies, because one of the big things to me about television, and this is why I watched Supernatural for like 15 years, is because there's something about TV where I just love these characters, and I love every week getting to sit down for an hour and hang out with these characters.
Right.
Because Supernatural, not every season was fabulous as from a story point of view, but I still had a great time because I just loved hanging out with Sam and Dean and Castiel and Crowley and, whoever else. I just love hanging out with the characters. And I think Frasier, I mean, Cheers was kind of built on that too, but I think Frasier gives that a little bit. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but you're right about the fact that just bringing them back doesn't mean it's going to work. You still got to have great topics. You still got to make a story for them. You still have to infuse life into these characters again. And just putting slapping the name Frasier on it isn't going to make it a hit. So it'll be interesting to see. I will miss Mahoney, though, the guy who played Frasier's and Niles' dad.
Yeah. I mean, again, that changes the dynamic of something. As much as I am a defender of something like, say, Godfather 3, when I saw Godfather 3, I love the Corleone family. But when they brought back Godfather 3 and you don't have Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen, who was such an integral part of that mythos, it didn't really, it didn't work. It wasn't the Godfather because you were missing that component. And I feel like John Mahoney was a huge part of Frasier, huge part of that show. And, can they capture that magic when a cornerstone of the show itself is missing?
Yeah. So we'll see how they do that. All right, guys. Question is, what do you think about the Frasier revival idea? I personally like it a lot. Maybe you never did watch it originally. Maybe you liked it more than us. What are your thoughts on this? Jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move into main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Parker Shellen. And Parker Shellen writes, "Hey, John, it's just been announced via Deadline that Ryan Coogler is set to develop and direct a series based on the Kingdom of Wakanda for Disney+. The series is part of a 5-year exclusivity deal between Coogler's Proximity Media and Disney+, which will allow Proximity to create TV for various divisions of Disney for their streaming platform. This is an interesting idea, and I'm curious to see where it goes. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think it has potential? Thanks." All right, thanks for sending that in, Parker. And look, Ryan Coogler has been... Rob, I don't think it's hyperbole to say, over the last few years, he's become one of the hottest filmmakers in the business.
Yeah.
Because you look at things like, obviously he did Creed, Fruitvale Station, then he comes and does the Academy Award, Best Picture, first comic book movie ever to be nominated for Best Picture, Black Panther. I mean, he's just shown he can do an awful lot. And now... he signed on, not just, the one thing everybody's paying attention to this, Rob, is there's going to be a Wakanda show, a Kingdom of Wakanda show on Disney+. That's interesting. But what's even more interesting to me is this whole thing about it being a 5-year deal for all of Disney's platforms. This comes to us from the folks over at Screen Rant who write, Coogler's company Proximity Media has signed a 5-year television deal with Disney, which will allow him to develop new shows for any of Disney's divisions. The first has already been revealed, as we've been talking about, a Disney Plus series focusing on the Kingdom of Wakanda. No further details were given, save that it is a drama, which is kind of makes sense. Rob, I'm going to say something that is not going to be very popular. I'm going to say something that is not very popular. Now, this looks like from the outside, and I don't know the details of their 300-page contract, but on the outside, this kind of looks like a standard first look deal, kind of really bringing him in-house into Disney. And while I am very excited, and we'll talk about this more in a bit, while I am very excited that we're going to get this Wakanda show. I love the idea of this. We'll talk more about this in depth, but I don't think this was a good move for Ryan Coogler. I mean, I think it's a great move. If you're Disney, you sign this guy up and you lock him in. As a matter of fact, Bob Iger came out to made a statement about this, and Bob Iger said the following. He said, Ryan Coogler is a singular storyteller whose vision and range have made him one of the standout filmmakers of his generation. With Black Panther, Ryan brought a groundbreaking story and iconic character to life in a real, meaningful, and memorable way, creating a watershed cultural moment. We're thrilled to strengthen our relationship and look forward to telling more great stories with Ryan and his team. And I agree 1,000% with Big Papa Iger. I agree with him 1,000%. If you're Disney and you can lock this dude up for 5 years, one of the hottest filmmakers in the business, you do it. And you pop bottles and you celebrate into the night over there at good old Disneyland. You do that. I just don't know, Rob, if this was a great deal for Ryan Coogler, because he is one of the hottest filmmakers right now. I think any studio in the world right now will sign a green light contract before he even walks in the door to have his first meeting. That's the position Ryan Coogler's in right now. I don't know that he'll be in that position 10 years from now, but he's in that position right now. And I just don't know if him kind of, putting a ring on it and making it exclusive with Disney, I don't know if that's the best thing is for his career. That being said, Rob, I don't know how many mouse-eared trucks full of Spanish gold have been backed up to Ryan Coogler's front porch and dumped on his lawn. That could change my mind on this a little bit about how much really, because Rob, we're seeing a lot of these showrunners getting like $100 million deals to develop shows for things. And you got to imagine that Ryan Coogler's deal here, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Rob. This could be a $200 million deal. I mean, this could be that significant. So aside from that money, which changes everything, I don't like the decision for Ryan. I think Ryan could do a lot more creatively outside of just Disney, but I'm sure Big Papa Iger, handed over the keys to the vault and said, I'll bring all this money over to Ryan. But anyway, Robin, then there's getting lost in all this is the idea of a Kingdom of Wakanda show, which, we were introduced to this whole new world really of Wakanda in Black Panther, which was exciting and invigorating, seeing this whole other culture and world on our world. It was fascinating. Anyway, Rob, so many different angles to this. You look at this situation. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, when you achieve power in Hollywood, the only real power in Hollywood is the ability to get your projects made. I mean, that's it. You're in the entertainment business. If you want to make movies and television, when you have that kind of power, you take it. And he's been given an opportunity. And I think from a creative standpoint, he doing a Wakanda show, I think is probably highly appealing. I mean, if you think about it, maybe you're going to do like what Aaron Sorkin did with The West Wing and politics or something like that. You have an opportunity to world build this land and imagine the kind of actors you can work with and the stories that you can tell. I mean, I want an Okoye series about the Dora Milaje or something. And obviously we know these are globe-trotting folks and You've got elements of spy thriller, political intrigue, science fiction all rolled into one. I'll bet, as Ryan Coogler was writing his Black Panther 2 script, he probably came up with a lot of ideas that were his about, we could tell a story about this land and it could be exciting. And that's probably, he presented it. So I'm sure it came all out of him. I'll bet that his development of the Black Panther 2 script is what sort of led to something like this. And, if WandaVision is anything to judge by, we're gonna be getting some really, I think, interesting and intriguing stories from the serialized nature of these shows on Disney Plus from the MCU, and I think he probably sees it as a great creative opportunity, because anybody who's creative, everybody wants to get paid. But making movies and TV is just too damn hard. It is too aggravating. It is too frustrating unless you are really committed in the long term. I think that's why he is doing it. And I think he's doing it also because he has something to say. And I think that's why. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. And hopefully, it's not going to keep him. Hopefully he'll do what Christopher Nolan did. Make one for me and one for them. One for me and one for them. And I think what he's doing is he's shoring up his ability to have the next 20 years of his life in his own hands, as opposed to being beholden to corporate minders, because as a creative, they come to him. He doesn't have to be like with his hand out like Oliver Twist. Please, sir, may I have another movie? No, he's going to be able to control his own destiny, and I'm excited.
All right, guys, question is, you hear about this whole thing. We got a Wakanda series coming to Disney Plus to go on top of the huge stockpile of projects they have coming. Ryan Coogler's going to be developing with his production company for 5 years for various Disney platforms. What do you guys think about this? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down, let's now move on and start taking your live questions today. And by the way, in case you guys did not see this a little bit earlier, I'll bring this up so you guys can see what it is we're talking about. But Robert Meyer Burnett did a companion video. You can see it right here that we put up late last night. He got us mostly caught up on all the questions you guys have shot in over the past number of days, and he got us caught right up. Rob, thanks for doing that again, sir. It's always awesome when you do that. That was fun. I watched most of it. And so, guys, and I love it when you do it. So listen, guys, now, if you guys have a comment or question you want to get on the show here in our live questions part of the show, just go ahead and use the tip link that's in the description of this video. You can just click on it there, or you can enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show here if it's reasonable. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here on the show, thank you guys very, very much for that support. Okay, guys. Let's get into your live questions. We're going to get things picked up here with Dave Johnson, who writes, "Hey, John, has anyone discussed the fact that everything that's escaped from Westview so far has stayed transformed? Monica, the jump rope. I think it opens the possibility of Vision staying alive and resurrected after WandaVision ends." All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, Dave. Rob, this is something that we have discussed and talked about. It is interesting that when things go into WandaVision's energy bubble, they change to fit the context. When it comes out, it stays the way it was inside the bubble. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Does that open the idea that Vision can just walk out of the bubble and be alive again? I don't think so. Because it all depends again on your base theory. Is Vision actually real? And you and I are kind of representative here of the entire fan base, because I believe one thing, you believe the other. I don't believe Vision's real in this. I believe he's sentient in it. I think he's kind of like Ben Reilly in the Spider-Man thing. He's got to figure out that he's not actually Peter Parker. I think this Vision's going to at some point figure out he's not the real Vision. But it kind of depends on your position on that. If you have the same position I do, that Vision is not real, then I don't think he can leave that bubble. And we see in the teaser him walking up to the field. I don't think he's able to walk through it because he's not real. So I don't think he's going to be able to get out. But Rob, you kind of do believe, you think he is real. So no, oh no?
No.
You think the kids are real. You think the twins are real.
I think the twins are real, but I think that Vision is not. And I think that one of the great tragedies of this show, I think what it's building up to, is I think when Vision is revealed to not, there's a great episode of Star Trek The Next Generation from the first season that everybody bags on the first season, but it's called The Big Goodbye. And in it, Lawrence Tierney is a hologram created crime boss. And at the end of the episode, he gets to like walk out of the holodeck, but he can't exist outside the holodeck, and he doesn't really know he's a hologram, and he starts to disintegrate, and he's horrified by it. And it's a great moment, and I kind of think we're going to get one of those moments because, Kevin Feige's a big Star Trek fan, where the Vision realizes that he's not real. And he's going to confront Wanda, and he's like, I'm gone. I'm not really here. You must let me go. And it's going to be a wrenching emotional moment. And it's when Wanda has to finally let go of Vision, and it's going to drive her over the edge. It's the fact that whatever this construct, whatever Westview is doing for her, she's barely keeping it together. If Mephisto forced her to do it, if she's doing it on her own, who knows? But I think at the end of the day, it really is all about, this show is all about processing grief and trauma and how good people can go bad when their trauma isn't dealt with, or however they're dealing with their trauma. And I think that's going to be the thing that makes her go full on villain, is when she has to confront the fact that Vision is not real.
Dude, we've been talking about it. This show ain't going to end well. I don't think there ain't no happy ending at the end of WandaVision. So this can be interesting. All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Dave. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes in, 1 of 4. Hey, John, longtime viewer, first-time tipper. Thanks, Anonymous, for being here. Guys, please, once again, I want to remind you, unless you purposefully want to be anonymous, which is totally fine, but I want to remind you guys that when you go over to send in your tip, make sure, see that top line says your name? A lot of people forget to put in their name. And if you want to stay anonymous, that's perfectly cool too. But, if you're sending in a question, something fun for us to talk about, and you're supporting our show, I want to make sure you guys get a shout out for that. So try to remember to make sure you fill out that top part. Anyway, let's go back on over to Anonymous, who writes in 1 of 4. Longtime viewer, first time tipper. Thanks again for that, man. And I'm sorry, but I think I have to ruin WandaVision episode 4 a little bit. Uh-oh. Why is nobody talking about the continuity issue of it? The episode starts, we see Monica undusted and getting back to her job. She then meets with Jimmy Woo, launches the helicopter drone, and gets sucked into Westview. Her disappearing triggers S.W.O.R.D., setting up a base and bringing Darcy in, who discovers the signal of the sitcom and starts watching and investigating. Everything happening outside has to be after we see the helicopter in episode 2. That's a good point. And from the attempt to contact Wanda via radio while she is talking to Dottie, we know the broadcast Darcy watches is live and in real time. That is a very good point. So how can they watch stuff from episode 1, final scene of episode 1, when we see somebody is watching? Agnes's picture on the investigator's board is empty from episode 1. They identify Vision's boss and his wife from the scene. What are your thoughts? Rob, that is a terrific point, because by the time S.W.O.R.D. gets there, by the time Monica arrives there, WandaVision would have already started, because when she sends in the drone, we see the helicopter fall out of the sky for Wanda, right? Mm-hmm. But so it's not in real time. But then Darcy is watching the show in real time because, okay, got to wait for her to be near a radio. She's on a radio. Start transmitting now, right? That is an inconsistency in the show. I had not noticed that or thought about that. That's a good point. I think we can forgive it, but I don't know. Rob, what's your take on this?
Well, here's the thing. I don't necessarily think so, because we've only seen a couple of episodes of the show, but it could have been going on for weeks or months. And what she's doing is she's found within this background radiation that this signal is there. Maybe she's got like a TiVo, has saved up a bunch of those signals, and then she's figured out a way to watch the actual live broadcast. So it's like YouTube. You can watch a live show, or you can watch all the archive shows, and the archive shows are in the background radiation, the cosmic radiation that's there. But then she's now getting the live feed, watching it as it's being being distributed or becoming part of this ongoing stream. So that's when she knows, okay, whatever is going on now, I've finally I've keyed into the live broadcast, and that's what they're watching. So I don't necessarily think that's an inconsistency. I think it can be explained away somehow, because they really haven't explained how those broadcasts are working. Like, because, you know, it's not like there's a TV station broadcasting this. It's just kind of happening. And I don't think we know. I think they might even explain that later as the series moves on. I don't know.
Maybe, because I got to agree with the Knobs. It seems like a little bit of an inconsistency. It's not an important inconsistency, though, right now. And also, let's remember this. This came up the other day, Rob. We got to remember, these are 30-minute episodes. They don't have time to do a full explain-o-vision of every single little thing that eats up precious screen time. Each episode is only 30 minutes. So there might be some things that the showrunners just go, okay, the audience is just going to have to accept this because we can't waste 3 minutes. We can't waste 10% of our episode's time just to explain this one little thing. So the audience is just going to have to say, okay, we'll just accept that for now and assume there's a good explanation for it. But I think that's a really good thing, though, that anonymous viewer just pointed out, because I hadn't noticed that before. Well done, Anonymous. All right, next up. Garden Variety Vagabond writes, one word, try this again. Necrobophilia, or at least for that matter, nectrosexual, ASFR to the nth degree, please no, because we are okay with robophilia, just not necrorobophilia. And again, it brings up a big thing. Of course, we all have different positions on whether or not that's actually Vision's dead corpse that's being puppeted around. I don't think it is. I thought that's just a trauma she saw when she looked at that. But I mean, if it was, and we've already talked about this, but in episode 2, the beginning of episode 2, when Wanda and Vision hear a sound out the window and Wanda pushes their beds together, it ends with, Wanda, yes, darling, get the light. And they go under the covers. Wanda's humping a dead robot corpse. Now, I don't mean to be crude, but it is what it is. She is, getting it on with a dead robot corpse. And again, I am not here to judge. I said it before, Rob. Some people like to drink. Some people like to smoke. Some people like to bet on sports. Everybody's got their vices. Wanda likes to have sex with dead robots. I'm not here to judge. Everybody should be a little bit more open-minded. No. But it does make it have a very, very dark turn. It does make it have a very, very dark turn.
No, he's not there.
No, he's not there.
He's not there. It's all in Wanda's mind.
Robonecrophilia is a real issue, and we should raise awareness. What does Michael Scott used to say? Run for the cure. We're gonna have a run for the cure to raise awareness of robonecrophilia. Okay, next up. Garden Variety Vagabond also writes, John, the New Jersey Devils hockey team is based on the pre-existing folklore of the Warren-like Jersey Devil living in the Pine Barrens. I had no idea about that. I know just about everything about hockey. I did not know that about the history of the New Jersey Devils. Is that actually a thing? I'm not saying is the legend real. I'm saying, is it a real thing that is what the owners of the New Jersey Devils decided to base the name on? That would be interesting if that's true. I'd have to go look that up. Thanks, Garden Variety. Next up, McDavid deserves better. Speaking of hockey, since 1992, the Edmonton Oilers rank 31st in NHL points percentage. Their stretch from 2007 to 2016 is the most concentrated decade of failure in sports history, worse than Cleveland. As a Leafs fan, you can understand my agony. Let's start a support group. Much love, Canada. Okay, McDavid deserves better. Listen. Okay? I don't want to hear you crying about, oh, boo-hoo. For a couple of years, my Edmonton Oilers haven't been so good. Oh, boo-fucking-hoo. Because you know why? I've got vivid memories in my head of Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Yari Curry, Grant Fuhr, Lowe, you name it, hoisting Stanley Cups over their fucking heads. My entire lifetime, Rob, not once in my lifetime have the Toronto Maple Leafs, for the entire time I have drawn breath on this earth, have my Toronto Maple Leafs ever been to the Stanley Cup let alone won a Stanley Cup. To the best of my recollection, in that time, the Edmonton Oilers have won 6. And they've been to a bunch more. Maybe it was 5. I losing count of how many they've won. So, and they were perennial favorites, and my Leafs have sucked my entire lifetime. So don't compare. McDavid deserves better. Don't compare the boo-hoo, my poor Edmonton Oilers, to the experience of lifelong Leafs fans who have endured a lifetime of sports fandom futility. A lifetime. So, had to get that out of my system. Don't compare them. Don't compare your suffering as an Oilers fan to the suffering of a Leafs fan. Come on now. Come on. Anyway, let's move on. That's got to be put on sports radio in Canada. That little bitch and moan fest I just did. Okay, Chris writes, "Hey John, love all that you do." Thank you so much, Chris. How would you compare the GameStop/AMC stock situation to The Big Short film? How similar and or different are these two situations? Thanks and have a great day. Well, I mean, look, let's be clear here. I am by the very definition, I'm a layman when it comes to understanding stock market. I mean, I understand a little bit about the stock market and things like that, and we've talked about it a bit, but I'm no financial expert. It does seem like there are some thematic similarities, though, because I was just because of this whole AMC GameStop thing. I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube watching clips from The Big Short. Great movie, by the way,
dude. I love The Big Short more than anything, man. I've watched that movie. Elizabeth used to bust me like late at night. It was on Netflix, and I would watch just sections of it over and over and over again. I love that movie.
Such a good movie. So, I mean, I think there are some thematic similarities. By the way, when I woke up this morning, it looked like AMC had dropped down to $6, but then started to climb back. I don't know where it is right at this moment, but when I woke up, it had dropped to $6. It was up back to 8, I think, when we started the show. But Ann and I sold our AMC stock at 17, so I'm very, very happy about that. But Rob, from what you remember about the movie, do you see many similarities between that and what's going on with the AMC, GameStop, BlackBerry, things like that?
No, I think it's a different. I mean, look, it's the same mechanisms. They're using the same mechanisms, but what's happening with what's happening with GameStop is, I think, a very different thing. And although, like with what happened during the subprime mortgage crisis, it does reveal how our financial system is rigged against the everyday investor. And, I'm a big believer in capitalism. I think the capitalism works when it's not perverted. And our system is, and this is just another example of that, is wildly corrupt. And it is subverted by big money. And it always has been, and it always will be. I guess that's just a function of the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. But it is shocking to see it revealed to such an extent. And it's they announced yesterday that the guy who wrote The Social Network is making The Unsocial Network now. They're going to do a movie about this. And it's really depressing to see, because it's just another example of how we as human beings are short-sighted, and then all of these systems that we expect, especially in America, that we accept that are supposed to work for us, are wildly corruptible and wildly corrupted. And it's a bummer, but it's different than what happened in 2008, although that was a different kind of unbelievable corruption. And once again, will anybody pay for it? I don't know. Basically, when you have people deciding they want to buy a stock, even if it's a meme stock and they jack up the price, there's nothing illegal about that. If a bunch of investors on a Reddit board decide to buy a bunch of stock because they want to stick it to the man because they understand that people were unfairly shorting GameStop for their own amusement or their own profit, and somebody fights back against that, well, that's something that legitimately can happen. And, the people that worked worked Robinhood realized Robinhood they didn't have those investors' interests at heart. And look what they did to them. It's really, the whole situation is pretty amazing to look at, and you profited, so it's all good.
It's all good. Yeah, look, again, I've been saying, I've said for years, I mean, not on this show, but I've said for years, amongst friends and everything, that shorting should be illegal. There's it's fundamentally corrupt. The whole notion of shorting should be illegal.
I got an email, actually a DM from one of our viewers who said he bought, I think he said 3,600 shares of AMC stock at 99 cents when it went down that far or something.
I don't think it ever went down that far.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it was like 199 or something like that.
But he said thank you to us because he credited you and I for talking about AMC stock, and he came out. I mean, can you imagine having 3,600 shares and selling it at 17?
Well, listen, when it dropped down to 2, that's when Ann and I said, because you know me, I believe that at some point the movies are coming back.
Yeah.
And when the theaters are able to open their doors again, you're going to see their stock go up. But I was thinking, hey, we'll buy it at 2. We'll be able to sell it at like 5. I thought it would like go up to like 5 and we'll double our money. And then we wake up one morning and it's 17. It's like, well, there you go. All right. We need to keep going. By the way, Wyatt Bender in the live chat sends in a super chat badge in the live chat there. Thank you, Wyatt. All right, let's keep moving on here. Aaron E., speaking of which, Aaron E. writes, hey, John, congrats on your AMC sell. My question is, how often / why does a studio make a sequel from a movie that lost money at the box office? I asked this because Tomb Raider is making a sequel, and you said it lost a bit of money. Thanks. Okay, so there are several factors that can go into this, right? Like, obviously, when a movie's popular and it made a lot of money, no brainer. A studio's going to try to make a sequel. If a movie makes a lot of money but wasn't all that good, they may make a sequel. If a movie was fantastic but didn't really make money, they might, maybe. So here are the factors. You have to try to forecast what you think its chances could be moving forward. And do you have reason to believe that another one may do better than the previous one? And there have been situations like this where a movie came out, it didn't do very well, but everybody loved it. And so you, based on the predication that the idea that because everybody loved it so much and the positive word of mouth, we believe we can make another one and that it will perform better than the first one did. There's that. In the case of Tomb Raider, there are a couple of factors. Number one, the first Tomb Raider movie with Alicia Vikander was actually pretty good. You know, it wasn't a mind-blowingly great movie, but it was pretty good. And Rob, you and I both said we were both entertained by it. We liked it. But now you have to look at the climate of the industry. And right now, Rob, we are seeing a number of high-profile video game properties being put into production. And so if you're the studio behind Tomb Raider, you look at that and you say, okay, so people generally liked our first one, and there's a new movement of a bunch of video game properties now being developed. We think in this new environment, another Tomb Raider could do better than the first one. And I'm thinking right now, that's probably their rationale for thinking, you know what, it's worth going at this one again. The environment has changed. The cultural context has changed. The industry has changed. Now there's a whole flood of new properties. We've already got one that's a franchise. It was received fairly well when it first came out. So that's probably their thinking. Rob, why do you think a property like a Tomb Raider that lost money and other movies that sometimes lose money get a green light to go ahead and make a sequel?
Well, I think it's probably because it's easier to come up with a story. We understand the story paradigm that Tomb Raider works within. You know, it's a tried and true formula, an adventure, plundering an ancient temple, looking for treasure, looking for buried treasure, whatever. It's such a simple story that we all can really understand. And then we have so many, you know, you can always look at Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I think it's just an easy thing to wrap your head around. Whereas if you were going to make, say, I was talking to you before the show began, there's Mass Effect is remastering the first three, the Mass Effect games in 4K. Whereas if you're going to make a Mass Effect game, well, how do you distill that into a 2-hour movie? And I think that's why people come back to things like Tomb Raider, because, you know, I mean, people have fond memories of the first 2 Lara Croft movies with the lovely, you know, Eternal Star. Why am I trying to blank? Angelina Jolie. And so I think that, and as we've said, that Tomb Raider movie with Alicia was, like, I know her on a first name basis, but it was pretty good, you know, and I think there's potential there. And so that's why I think people keep coming back to those kinds of things.
I agree. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Sergeant Ward, who writes, Hey, John, over under 50% that Warner Brothers decides if movie theaters are fully open back up by 2022, and I believe they will be before that, they will revert back to traditional theatrical movie model. I think HBO Max will have enough subscribers by then. After the backlash, they should do that. Well, look, it's important to understand a couple things. Number one, that's what they claim they're going to do. Like, they claim they're doing that. They've already announced a couple of theatrical releases for 2022, and they've said that 2021 is just going to be this. I never believed them, but they have said from the beginning that they're only going to do this for 2021. Their numbers are still abysmal. Like, they released that in quarter four. We had like, what was it? Like we doubled our numbers in quarter four. Well, that's because in quarter four, that's when you actually really did your push, and you had Wonder Woman came out and your numbers were already incredibly low. And I'm sorry, but you doubling your numbers in the fourth quarter ain't that impressive when you consider that your starting numbers weren't all that good. I think they're going to, here's what I think right now. But I totally reserve the right, Rob, to change my position on this. Okay. Cause we need more information. We need more actual data. But based on the limited data we have right now, my guess, and it's just a guess and I totally reserve the right to change my mind once we get more data, is that as we get closer to the end of 2021, HBO and Warner Brothers is going to realize that this ain't working, that they're not getting the windfall they thought they were going to get, and that they're going to realize we need that theatrical money in order to finance all the stuff that we want to do on it. You know what's paying for Disney Plus? That $11 billion that Disney made at the box office in 2019. That's what's paying for all this stuff going on Disney Plus. And that's why Disney's still saying they're laying out a robust release schedule of things for Disney Plus, of things for theatrical, things like that. They understand that. I think Warner Brothers is going to understand this as well. And so I do believe we're going to see them. Listen, Rob, we already heard Walter Hamada say that they are going to plan for, 4 theatrical DC movies a year and 2 additional DC movies, 4 exclusively on HBO Max. And then guess what? When those 4 DC movies are done their theatrical runs, guess where they're going to go? They're going to go to HBO Max. So they're going to get the benefit of a few $100 million, maybe $1 billion, whatever dollars theatrically. And they're still going to get the benefit of putting on HBO Max and letting it live exclusively there, provided they don't screw it up like they did with Harry Potter and have the rights go all over the place. Because right now you can't watch Harry Potter on HBO Max, which is very strange. I don't think you can watch Harry Potter in streaming anywhere. Anyway, Rob, when you look at the whole situation, what are the chances when 2022 comes, Warner Brothers gets back to putting movies in theaters? By the way, I think Dune is going to get theatrical exclusive anyway, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely that's the business that they're in, and you know, a good theatrical run adds value to a film. You know, Endgame, people, even though everyone's seen Endgame, it made $3 billion. When it comes to Disney Plus, people will watch it again. So if something has a great, robust theatrical run, it becomes more valuable and people want to see it and keep seeing it. And I think that you cannot downplay the fact that a theatrical run cements the great movies into the pop culture consciousness. When you go see a movie at the theater, it's an event and you don't really forget it. And if you have a great experience like the on your left moment at the end of Endgame, you're never going to forget that. And you wouldn't have had it, like we talked about earlier in the show, unless you went to a theater. And that's what gives movies their power and their value for the extended, for the long run, because people then remember that and they return to movies again and again and again. And then they talk about movies they've seen to people that might not have seen it. And then they'll go watch it as well because they heard from a trusted friend or a family member that the movie was great and it was a great experience in the theater. So, okay, I'm going to catch up with it on TV. Movies gain value from being seen in the theater, and I don't think that's ever going to change. And everybody wants to go back to the theaters, including the studios, because they need that extra cheddar. Like you said, $11 billion. Well, that's a nice chunk of change, man. That helps you make a lot of TV shows.
Indeed it is. All right. With that down, let's move on to the next one. Sorry, I'm having, where is it? There it is. Sergeant, I got confused because Sergeant Ward put in another one. He didn't put 1 of 3 though. 2 of 3. 2. I also feel that since Warner Brothers is the only studio doing this and other studios delayed or out on streaming as a last resort, I think the only ones Warner is hurting is themselves. Clearly, the other studios can have both markets. Also, in Bob Chapek's own words at Disney's Investor Days Q&A, we made $13 billion at the box office last year in 2019. Not something to sneeze at. No effing kidding. So he believes in theaters. My opinion, couple of years from now, movie theaters will be back to normal. Well, listen, I think, look, let's be realistic here, though. The industry is changing, right? The industry is changing. I think the movie theaters are going to be back to our traditional sense of normal closer to the end of this year. But that doesn't mean there's not going to continue to be an evolution and a change. Like, Rob, we already saw, lest we forget, right before the pandemic hit, we just saw the movie theater industry go through its biggest metamorphosis in its history, transitioning from a single pay use system. You want to see a movie, you buy a $10 ticket, you get to come in and watch that one movie, and then you leave. They had just done this complete metamorphosis transition from that model, which they have had for 100 years, to a subscription-based model. Something that I think I, as a movie fan, never thought we would see. And it's the best thing to happen to movie fans. Like whether it's AMC A-List, Regal Unlimited, Alamo has their own system as well. Cinemark has their own movie club now. And they just went through this major metamorphosis. There will be other major metamorphoses coming as well. But we've already seen that transition happen. So I think the theater industry will look different and normal at the same time. I don't know, Rob, what do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, look, history has shown us that change is constant, and things will always move forward, and something will happen. But I think after this, if anything, I've really come to value. I actually think about going to the movies a lot, John. I know you probably do too. And
yep.
They've meant so much to me my whole life. And this has been the longest period of time since I started going to the movies when I was a little kid that I haven't gone to a theater. And I've realized that I take comfort in it. Going to the movies, even when I don't like a movie, there's still some kind of magic that happens. Going into that room, the lights coming down, buying your refreshments, watching the trailers, and then having a story wash over you. And on a screen that's larger than life, just seeing other human beings tell me a story on a giant screen where I'm watching other human beings way bigger than I ever see them in my real life, and having an emotional or a physiological response to it. It's I wouldn't say it's a narcotic, but it's definitely something that my personal makeup sort of requires for happiness, and not having it has been, I've reflected on it a lot. I mean, I still love movies and TV, but I'm kind of sick of looking at my same size screen. I want to have that experience. I want that larger than life experience when I go to, say, the Chinese and see their IMAX Blade Runner 2049 presentation that was ear-splittingly loud and that giant screen. And I'm like, this is so transportive, and I just miss that. Drinking alcohol doesn't cut it.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Next up, we've got Jay Bling, who writes, when you spoke of your disdain for the practice of shorting stocks, it made me rewatch The Big Short again. To me, they mislabeled the movie as a drama. It's actually a horror movie due to its increasing sense of dread. I mean, it is in a way. It's kind of the way they shoot The Big Short too, Rob. It's interesting because it's kind of drama, half documentary in a way. I lost Rob there for a second. Are you still here, Rob?
I am.
Rob, can you speak for me for a second?
Hello, John. I haven't touched anything.
Okay, so we can still hear Rob, but for some reason, his image went away, which is unfortunate. I don't know why your picture.
I'm still here, John. I'm still here.
Yeah, we'll get that figured out. But Rob, the neat thing about, as we try to figure this out, about that movie again, it's half documentary, half drama in a way, because they have a lot of those things where they split away from the screen. And then like that Margot Robbie bit where suddenly it's just Margot Robbie in a bathtub and she's explaining something. They do that a lot. But I don't know, how did they mislabel it? First of all, does it make you think about The Big Short, the whole stuff going on now? And how would you label that movie?
Well, it's still, even though you still have an actress delivering lines, of dialogue. And I think that that's a lovely picture of me. I'm looking at my background.
I'm ad-libbing as I go here, Rob. I'm doing the best I can.
And I think it's still part of the movie. I just think it's a really interesting device. Even Anthony Bourdain and they do these other. I still think it's still fictionalized, even though we're being given information. And I thought it was a really interesting device to use. I really liked it. Look, the movie is still fiction. Even though those sequences you're still having actors playing a role. Even though it's Margot Robbie telling you these things, she's still saying lines that were written for her to say. It's not like somebody went out into the wild and, here's Margot Robbie in a bathtub drinking champagne. Let me ask her about how finances work. It's not like that. So it's still fiction.
And of course, they had to put her in a bathtub drinking champagne. Listen, Rob, we are getting close to your end of your time here today. Anyway, I know you got stuff you got to do, and you've got, again, you got just informed your movie, Tango Shalom, just got greenlit at another film festival. I mean, things are going right. But in the meantime, Rob, before we have you back again tomorrow, of course, and we'll get your image thing fixed, where can people find you and your glory online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations.
All right, dude. Thanks a lot for being here, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. Have a good one, man.
All right, man. I'll see you later.
Okay, guys. That is the one and the only. Anyway, guys, with that down, let's keep on moving. Before we get to the next question, by the way, Sean's World sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you so much for that, Sean. And Fuzzy FJ also sends in a super chat badge in the live chat saying thank you. Well, thank you to you for sending that in. Appreciate that. All right, let's keep on going with your live questions. We're going to keep on going here now with Probability writes, Mordo watching WandaVision. Looks like I found my new target. J. Jonah Jameson. Oh, you're serious. I love that line, by the way, when Peter goes in and asks for a raise. I mean, look, this raises actually a very real question for somebody like me. Because Chiwetel Ejiofor, who played Mordo in Doctor Strange, is actually one of my favorite actors in the world right now. I think he's amazing. And I love that character in Doctor Strange. And I desperately want to see him back. And remember how he ends his character in Doctor Strange, like too many wizards, too many sorcerers, whatever the word, too many wizards. He's like coming wiping them out. Maybe Wanda does become his next target. That could be an interesting thing there too. I'd be into that. All right, next up, it's Ricky Aaron who writes, Betty Brandt says it's been 8 months since the snapback. Gutterman was the character that gave Mysterio the fake multiverse backstory. Crazy theory. Gutterman was working for S.W.O.R.D. 7 months prior to Far From Home during WandaVision, and we'll see him soon. Yeah, because one of the things we've been talking about in the WandaVision videos is the fact that we got to remember that these things that we're watching in WandaVision happen well before the events of Spider-Man Far From Home. Well before the events of Far From Home. So, and that's still kind of mind twisty. So could things we saw in Far From Home come into play there, that maybe one of those guys that was working with Mysterio actually have been working for S.W.O.R.D.? It's not a bad theory, Ricky, because listen, one of the things that WandaVision has been doing, obviously with Darcy and Agent Wu, Kat Dennings and Randall Park, is that they are using the minor characters, the minor side characters, and bringing them in more prominently. So that would be consistent if they wanted to take one of those smaller characters from Far From Home who only had limited screen time and then bring them in. And that way. So I don't know that they're going to do it, but I think it's an interesting theory. Thanks for sharing that, Ricky. And the Everything Nerd sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks for that, Everything Nerd. All right, next up, SR writes, Hey, John. I found the discussion between you and Rob interesting in relation to the shared TV/movie universe. I thought you would have been more skeptical and Rob would have been more optimistic about it, but it was the opposite. It often is. I noticed that the examples you gave were more shared TV universes instead of shared TV/movie universes. Does that change your mind about it? I personally can see Disney moving forward with this with their IPs, with already having Star Wars and Marvel shared universes. With Avatar and Pirates of the Caribbean, whereas the other studios might struggle, they already struggle handling a movie universe on its own. It would be a real struggle to maintain a movie universe/TV universe. What do you think? All right, so what SR is talking about is yesterday we got into the discussion about how, Disney and others have really gone all in on with Marvel, the MCU, the shared cinematic universe. And ever since Marvel hit it big with that, every studio has been scrambling, movie studio, to get their own shared cinematic universes going, whether it's comic book movies or other thing. Universal tried to get their dark universe, their monster universe going, and that failed spectacularly. But now Disney is bringing that whole thing of interconnected shared universes into television. Now, these things have been around before, right? Facts of Life and Different Strokes was kind of a shared cinematic universe. The Law and Order series, the Chicago series on TV right now, Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD. We've been seeing more of that, but now to the level of that. Now, the reason we didn't talk specifically about shared TV and movie universes is because there's no real history of that. That doesn't have a real long history. Like there's things we can't point to in the 80s, at least not on a significant level, and point to that. I mean, you could make the argument about the Star Wars movies and then the Ewoks on Endor made for TV movies. I suppose you could do that. But for the most part, it's been something kind of brand new, right? Can studios that own television or streaming and movie properties create shared television and movie things? Well, here's the thing. We're only 4 episodes into WandaVision. We haven't really seen if Disney can effectively pull off sharing their movie and their TV stuff, right? We can all assume they will make it work, but let's be honest, right now, it hasn't been proven that'll work. We're only 4 episodes into the first series. So let's see how that goes, but it could be something that they all start looking at. It absolutely is. All right, thanks for sending that in, SR. Next up, Sempaigar writes, sending this on February 1st. Today is February 2nd. So someone may have mentioned this already. In the mid-season trailer for WandaVision, at 1:16, it shows Vision outside the bubble, and you see what looks like one of the base's buildings and a floodlight. Did it show him outside, or did it show him trying to get outside? I can't remember. And again, here's the thing. We talked about this before, and it's a good thing we did, because we found out what we thought from one of the teasers wasn't what it turned out to be at all. It's always dangerous to base too much assumption on what we see in a preview, because previews can have massive misdirects. So I wouldn't read too much into that. Here's, for me personally, what we see in previews gives me something to look for when we actually watch the show or the movie. But don't let it make you buy into something too much until you see it in context or in the show, in the movie, because we've been misled a lot by that before. To me, it just says, oh, look at that. That's interesting. Let's keep an eye out for that in the movie and see how it actually turns out. So I would say keep an eye open for it. All right. Thanks for that, Sempaigar. Next up, Henri Martens writes, I watched the 1927 silent epic war drama Wings, and wow, not only is the Arsenal cinematography great, but there's also an incredible tracking shot that's impressive even by today's standards. A 22-second clip of it is on YouTube. Great piece of film history. We were talking the other day, it was a number of weeks ago, if you guys remember, about a lot of these older war films, right? Especially when you go into the earliest days of cinema. And a lot of the things that they shot and did were, any kind of filmmaking is impressive. But when you start jumping eras, particularly going back to earlier days in cinema, and you start talking about them pulling things off, and they didn't have the technological advances that we have today. Peter Jackson can make a Lord of the Rings movie and have 10,000 soldiers on a field running towards each other because they have software that emulates, you know, massive crowds of people and dynamic engines and stuff like that to make that happen. But then you go back and you watch Ben-Hur, or you go back and you watch something like Cleopatra, or you go back and watch these things, and they literally had to shoot these things in a very different and much more impressive way than today. So it's just something to keep our eyes on. Thanks for that, Henry. All right, next up, possibility, probability. Wanda's intention. In episodic sitcoms, everything ends back at the status quo each installment. Fights resolved, people forgiven, love lasts, nothing changes. They're preserved, fixed, immortal moments in time with no before and after, an endless looped escape. That's a great observation. That is a great observation. Because remember, our main predominant theory here about WandaVision at the moment is that WandaVision is ultimately Wanda trying to deal with her grief, not just of the loss of vision, but her entire life. Her entire life has been one tragedy after another. Wanda Maximoff's entire life has been defined by tragedies. Her entire life. And so now she's built this safe cocoon for herself. And I love your observation there. The whole thing about the sitcoms is that everything stays the same. You know, until eventually the family introduces a new baby, right? But ultimately, it really is everything stays the same. And that's important. That's a really important thing to understand. And when you look at that in terms of, you know, what's Wanda's purpose and what is her ultimate goal and what is she trying to accomplish for herself, then that becomes like really important. That's really important. So anyway, let's move on here. Next up, Mike's thoughts about stuff writes, thoughts on WandaVision. If that wasn't actually Vision's corpse standing there, then why was he already gray and dead looking before Wanda even looked at him? Wouldn't he be alive until Wanda turns around and imagines him that way? Thoughts, your buddy Mike. I think that's reading too much into it. What happens in a blurred background image from a camera angle doesn't give us anything one way or the other. So no, it wasn't, because if that had any relevance, why was he not if there was any relevance to him in that blurred bokeh background shot from a certain camera point angle looking kind of desaturated, if that was the case, then why didn't he look that way when he walked in the door in the first place? Again, I don't think it gives any credence for it or against it. I think that's a wash. So I don't really think it means anything. But it is funny that we're all looking for this stuff in there right now. All right, next up. Mike also follows up. Hey, John, sorry. I wanted to hear you say sorry because I like the way you say it. It's very Canadian. In WandaVision, when Rambo / Jump Rope come back, in our world, they come back modified. Do you think if Vision or the babies were to leave, they would come out how Wanda made them? We were talking about this a little bit earlier. My thought right now is, again, after 4 episodes, my theory can completely change, just like I've already had theories change. Because remember, episode 1, I thought AIM, and then we realized, okay, AIM's not really a thing here. So my theory could change. My theory right now is that Vision is not real, and I don't believe the babies are real. Rob does. I don't right now. Could totally change my mind after episode 5, of course. But right now, I don't think they're real. So my theory right now, completely based on nothing, is that I don't think they can leave. I don't think they really can leave. But John, in this preview, I know. I'm just saying, until I see the episode right now, my theory is they can't leave. Could totally be wrong about that, though. Could totally be wrong. We will find that out. Thanks, Mike. All right, possibility, probability writes. Predicting that Doctor Strange will try to help Wanda. Maybe not in this series, but in Doctor Strange 2, he will almost get through to her until she finds out that he gave Thanos the Time Stone. He may now want to bargain with Dormammu. That's true. The whole reason that Thanos was able to undo what Wanda did in killing. But remember, even without giving him the Time Stone, Vision ends up dead, right? The only difference is that Wanda killed him first. Thanos was able to undo that and kill him himself by pulling out the Time Stone. But in either scenario, Vision ends up dead, right? In either scenario. But yes, I agree with you. I think right now, again, based on nothing but fan speculation, I think right now that Doctor Strange 2 is going to be about Doctor Strange and others trying to stop Wanda, like all at the same time trying to stop Wanda and save Wanda at the same time. What the specifics are, I'm not really sure how that'll work out. I'm not really sure about that, but that's what I think it's going to ultimately end up being. All right, next up, Matt McBride writes, WandaVision. Sorry to keep the topic going, but without going into spoilers, I believe Vision will attempt to convince Wanda he has died, and he is accepting of being dead. Also, has Wanda fabricated a pseudo-Infinity Stone in Vision? Much love, cheers. Again, I don't think Wanda has the power to manifest like a real Infinity Stone. I don't think she has that kind of power. That is literally the power of the creation of the universe. Because remember, what we learned in the MCU is that that's where the Infinity Stones came from. They came from the Big Bang, the ultimate creation of the universe. I don't think she has that kind of power that she can actually recreate an Infinity Stone other than something that looks like an Infinity Stone. Do you see what I'm saying there? So yeah, I'm not really 100% sure about that, but that's kind of my take on it right now. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. Hey, listen, guys. We still have more show to go. But if you guys will give me a moment of indulgence, I'm going to go refill my drink. We've been going for about an hour and 41 right now. So if you will give me just a moment, we're going to take a quick break here. Use this moment to use the bathroom, talk amongst yourselves. But don't worry, we will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in just a moment. All right, guys, and we are back. Thank you for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. Now let's get back to your questions. Okay, next up. That was Matt McBride. Thanks for sending that in, Matt, by the way. Dr. Film writes, hey, John, I know you don't like TMZ BS, but do you think Armie Hammer allegations are fireable and could lead to his upcoming movies like Death on the Nile being reshot with another actor? No, they're not going to go back in and reshoot. They're not going to drop $30 million to go in and reshoot things like that. Listen, I don't follow the TMZ BS. I don't follow the TMZ BS whatsoever, but my understanding of the Armie Hammer thing is he just said some perverted, twisted things over a text with somebody, over like messages with somebody. I don't give a shit. I don't care unless he's hurting somebody or threatening somebody or all that kind of stuff. To me, it was just saying stupid shit. And so I don't really care. I don't care. Like, John, don't you understand? This is a big important reason because this is not okay. That's fine. But you feel that way and you run with it. I just don't care about that shit. I don't care about it. So no, I don't think they're going to go in and reshoot a movie or anything like that. And ultimately, I really don't think this is going to touch his career at all moving forward. I don't see it. But again, I don't care. I don't care. So I'm not making a big, bold statement. Oh, this is how we should look at the Armie Hammer situation. Oh, I don't care. You can look at it seriously, great. You can look at it totally non-seriously, great. I just don't care. So that's kind of my, I appreciate you asking, Doctor, but yeah, if you're asking my thoughts on it, no, I don't think it's going to affect anything. And really, ultimately, I just really don't care. So that's just me. All right. Thanks for asking though, man. All right. Next up, Dan the Man Levitin writes, if A New Hope was the only Star Wars movie ever made, would it still be as revered? Would we still be talking about it? Probably. I mean, listen, you got to understand, Star Wars A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie, was something that the movie industry had never seen before, right? It's just something that they had never seen before. It was, like the way it was the first like legit blockbuster, the first time people lined up in the masses that they are. And now look, would Star Wars be as big of a phenomenon today? Like if Empire and Return of the Jedi hadn't come out, no, it wouldn't be as big of a cultural thing, but would we still be talking about that first Star Wars movie? Absolutely. Absolutely. Not to the same degree, but I absolutely believe we would be, Dan. That's just my thought on that. All right. Let's see. DDL is the GOAT. Daniel Day-Lewis is the GOAT. He writes, hey, John, you've probably talked about this a million times before, but here it is. Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln versus Joaquin Phoenix in The Master. Who gave the better performance? Also, you're without question the best movie pundit in the world. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln. Now, it's close. It's close. Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln and Joaquin Phoenix in Joker, that's close. Or in The Master, that's close. I give the nod to Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln. That wasn't Daniel Day-Lewis. He won the Academy Award for that, but that wasn't Daniel Day-Lewis's best performance. I would say it's not even in his top 3. Now, if you want to compare Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood, well, then that's not close, right? That's not close. But those two examples, I'd say that's fairly close, but I would still kind of give, the nod to Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln. I would still give the nod there, but that would be a closer one. All right, next up. Someone who sends writes, according to Memorial in Spider-Man Far From Home, Vision is dead. Does that confirm that Vision in WandaVision is not real? Ooh. You know what? That's a good point. Because remember, Spider-Man Far From Home happens after the events of WandaVision, several months later. So if it is actually directly mentioned, I can't remember that. But if in Spider-Man Far From Home directly mentions or refers to Vision being dead, then that does kind of confirm that Vision isn't real in WandaVision, that he doesn't come out of this. So what about you guys in the live chat? Do you guys remember that? Because I don't remember the specific scene. Do you remember there being a direct reference or memorial or whatever that kind of visually or audibly confirms that Vision is dead? As of Spider-Man Far From Home, that he's dead. Anch is saying yes. Richard is saying yes. Amit is saying yes. I mean, and Jack the Oven's saying yes. I mean, I guess that kind of confirms it. I mean, I have to go back and double check that, but if that's true, that there is confirmation in Spider-Man Far From Home that Vision's dead, then that would kind of by extension mean that the Vision we are seeing in WandaVision is indeed not real. That's interesting. I got to go back and take a look at that. Excellent thing to bring up, someone. Excellent thing to bring up. Thank you for that. All right. I just noticed Kingston in the live chat is saying Vision is in Argentina hiding with Elvis. There's that too, I suppose. All right, next up. Willow writes, according to its page on IMDb, movie Trailers A Love Story has an estimated budget of $25,000. Is that accurate? I'm not going to answer that question. I appreciate asking, but I'm not going to go into the financial details of the movie. That's a personal thing, so I'm going to keep that. But I mean, look, I will say this. When you look at my movie Trailers A Love Story, which, by the way, Movie Trailers: A Love Story is available now. You guys can go watch my documentary. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to plug it here. Any country you live in, anywhere in the world, just go to vimeo.com/on-demand/movie trailers, and you can watch my documentary that Robert Meyer Burnett appears in called Movie Trailers: A Love Story. It's there. Also, if you live in the US or the UK, you can also watch Movie Trailers: A Love Story on Amazon if you want. Just go to Amazon, again, if you live in the UK or in the US, and look up Movie Trailers: A Love Story, and you will be able to find it there. All right. But what I will say, Willow, is that you can tell by the way I made the film that it certainly didn't cost me more than $25,000 to make it. I'll just leave it at that. You can tell by watching the film I didn't spend more than $25,000 to make it. So I'll say that and leave it at that. All right, thanks a lot for that. Let's see. Next up, we get Garden Variety Vagabond, who writes, one of three, Dungeon Master to player. As the king of this fair land, congratulations for defeating the rampaging giants, and thank you for saving our people. In gratitude, I am giving you your choice of any type of armor. In my vaults, I have adamanite, is that your way of trying to spell adamantium? Anyway, mithril, of course, from the Lord of the Rings, dwarven, elven dwarven. I even have vibranium. Adamantium, Euro, or even Dragonite, any type possible. What type of armor do you choose? Let's see. Oh, sorry, that's 3. 3 adventure. Plot armor, DM. Well played, sir. Well played. I'm not quite sure what plot armor is. I'm missing something. Anyway, Kingston sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thanks for that, Kingston. I'm not quite sure what that is. I mean, I know if it was me, vibranium is what I take. I take vibranium, vibranium. I take adamantium. I take adamantium over vibranium, and definitely over a mithril. But that's the one I would take. But I always love a good Dungeons and Dragons. I like a good Dungeons and Dragons setup. Thank you for that. Obviously, Ann and I play Dungeons and Dragons, so that's why I say that. Thank you, Garden Variety Vagabond. All right, an anonymous viewer writes in. Hey, John, and by the way, somebody is saying, Answer's saying in the live chat, plot armor is basically suspension of disbelief. Well, then in that case, I would take plot armor. Absolutely. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, longtime viewer. Thank you so much. I was wondering, is it really necessary to have 20 ads in your companion videos 4 minutes apart? It almost makes them unwatchable. I know they can be edited because other changes are starting to put them in transitions in theirs. I honestly, listen, I've been hearing from a couple of people that some of the videos have like a lot of ads. I don't put ads in them. I mean, I tell YouTube, yes, you can put ads on my videos. That's obviously how we generate revenue. But apparently they went through some sort of change recently where they're adding a bunch more things. I don't control that. And if there is a way for me to control it, I'm unaware of it. I will look into it. At some point here, but that's, from what I understand, that's not something I'm in control of, which is one of the frustrating things about when you use a free service like YouTube. But I will look into it. Other than that, I don't put the ads in. Just so you know, I don't put the ads in there. YouTube does that on their own, which is how they make money off me too. So, but I will look into that. All right. Where are we at? Next up, War Doctor 10 writes, hey, John and Rob, who's not here right now. My top 5 YouTube channels in no particular order are The John Campea Show, New Rock Stars, Movie Trivia Schmodown, Epic Rap Battles of History, and Emergency Awesome. What are yours? I highly recommend Epic Rap Battles of History, by the way. Well, here's the funny thing. For me, and this surprises some people sometimes, and I don't do top 5s, just so you know, but when I sit down in front of my TV and I grab my Chromecast remote and I fire up the TV, 80% of the time, I'm firing up the TV and going to my YouTube app. And at least 80% of the time that I'm watching YouTube, I'm watching tech videos. I am a big tech head. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about monitors, capture cards, new drivers, new laptops, new tablets, new cameras, whatever. I'm a tech head. So I watch a lot of Linus Linus Tech Tips, who's a good Canadian kid, and Glenn Graves sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Glenn Graves. I watch a lot of Linus Tech Tips. He's a good Canadian kid. I watch a lot of Unbox Therapy. Again, a good Canadian kid, Unbox Therapy. I watch a lot of Marquise Brownlee, MKBHD. I watch a lot of him. I watch a lot of Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I watch a lot of that. Mostly it's a lot of tech channels. I watch Harris Heller. So I like watching a lot of Harris Heller. I watch a lot of, just a lot of tech channels is what I'm more normally watching on YouTube. I mean, I watch a lot of other stuff too. I do, like a number of the channels you mentioned, but I find myself normally when I'm jumping on YouTube, I'm jumping on to watch tech videos, but that's just kind of one of the things I love. All right. Thanks for that, War Doctor. Next up, Scott Brown writes, do you think with Batwoman season 2 booming in ratings and quality, along with how awful the other DC CW shows have been for years now, that DC will take their properties from CW and put something better on HBO Max? It would be nice to have a good DC shows again. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier on today's show, that now I don't know this. I don't know this for sure, so I can't confirm this or anything like that, but it does kind of seem to me that it feels like the Arrowverse is winding down. And on top of that, it really does feel that Warner Brothers is desperate to try to get HBO Max to work. And by the way, I love HBO Max, but they're desperate to get that to work. And it really does seem like they're starting to transition things over there. And so I'll tell you again, Scott, I have no insider information. But it does feel like the Arrowverse is basically running its course. You know, they got that new Superman show coming out, which I have no interest in, but I feel kind of like that's going to be their last hurrah. I feel like this Superman show they got is probably going to be their last hurrah, and then that's it. Again, I can't confirm that. I have no insider information. That's just kind of the way it seems to me right now, Scott. All right, thanks for sending that in. Next up, Batman Gets Custody writes, Spider-Man, I lost my uncle due to choices I've made, lost my hero to a genocidal tyrant, and I'm framed for murder. I didn't commit. My life is a tragedy. Wanda, hold my twins. I know, right? Again, think about Wanda, her entire life. Wanda Maximoff's entire life is defined by tragedy. War-torn nation, family dies in the Stark bomb and everything like that, loses her brother, loses the love of her life, not once but twice, and one of the times she had to kill her lover herself. I mean, it's just boom. So oh, boo-hoo, Spider-Man, boo-hoo, Wanda might say. All right, Wyatt Bender writes, hey, John, I've been inspired by you to do my own podcast called Film Nostalgia. It'll be based around films we've all grown up on. Every episode is dedicated to a certain film that we have grown to love and impact it has given us. This is a great idea. Listen, I always encourage, and I'm good for you, Wyatt, for doing this, because I always encourage my fellow film fans. I believe it's great for everybody to do a blog, a podcast, or a YouTube channel of some way. It doesn't matter if you have 2 people watching, reading, or listening, 20 people, 200, 2,000. It doesn't matter. It's a fun exercise to really get engaged in the object of our fandom. And I think that it's great that you're doing that, Wyatt. Good on you for doing it, man. Let me know how it goes for you. All right, next up. Batman vs. Deadpool writes, hey, John, I missed you last week. Do you know when Aaron is ready to come back to the show? Well, in LA, we've had heightened restrictions about, COVID-19 restrictions and all that kind of stuff. So having anybody come into studio has been very, very limited. Not to mention, Aaron is immune compromised because, she battled with cancer before. So I'm very paranoid about Aaron's health. Now, Ann and I get tested regularly and we both work at home. So we rarely leave the house and we get tested regularly. I will tell you this. I'm thinking probably within the next 2 weeks. We will see Aaron back with little Joey Bishop as well. Because, I love Joey Bishop and I love Aaron. So I think within the next couple of weeks, we're going to see Aaron coming back here now that we're starting to see some restrictions move. And Dwayne Jackson sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate that, man. All right. Thanks for asking Batman vs. Deadpool. Frankie Gouge writes, Hal Holbrook, R.I.P. The most memorable thing for me is his bit in Creepshow with Adrian Barbeau. Just tell it to call you Billy. I know he has done much greater things, but that Creepshow bit has always stuck with me. But you know, and you're not alone, Frankie, because there are a lot of people. Like, for instance, we look at a guy like, hold on a second. Let me bring this up. What am I looking for? I'm freezing on it. Hold on a second. So when you look at it, like sometimes like with actors, like big famous actors, they can do a lot of stuff. But for us, like one weird little thing will stand out to us, right? Like it'll be one kind of weird thing that stands out, that keeps it, that this is the thing that we will always think about. And for me, like a couple of those guys are the guy who played the comedian in Watchmen. And he played the Winchester's dad in Supernatural. Like that dude could go on to win 15 different Academy Awards, and that's fine. But I will always know him as the guy who was the dad in Supernatural, right? Or you look at a guy like Greg Kinnear, actor Greg Kinnear, right? He's done a lot of stuff, Greg Kinnear. He was even nominated for an Academy Award for in As Good as It Gets that he was in with Jack Nicholson. That's a great movie, by the way. If you've never seen it, you should totally watch that. As Good as It Gets. Greg Kinnear's in this, and that's great, but I don't care. When I think, and it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan was the guy I was thinking of. Thanks guys in the live chat. When I think of Greg Kinnear, I will always only think of one thing. Captain Amazing from Mystery Men. I know he's done a lot of other stuff. I know he even got Academy Award nomination for other things. But when I think of Greg Kinnear, I think of Captain Amazing. So, yeah, that's not a weird thing, Frankie, at all. That all these actors, even these ones who've done all these amazing things, there's something in particular that they did that stands out just for us. And I think that's great. All right. Next up. A French fan writes, "Hello, John," and Rob is still there. We just missed out on Rob. Love your show and congrats on your move. Thank you so much. It never made any sense that they reappeared in the same spot in space because not only the plane would have moved, but also the Earth and galaxy itself. Therefore, everybody would be dead. You know what? That's a great point. That you couldn't really reappear in the exact same place because the Earth moves, the Earth rotates. Even that theory would be you have to show up in a relative position to where you are. So that is a great point, French fan. And again, just another thing that just kind of re-emphasizes the theory. Thanks so much for sending that in. All right. My name, Jeff, writes in. I love that line in 21 Jump Street. All right. Hey, John. Under 5%, Gamera will show up in a post-credit scene in Godzilla vs. Kong. I love Gamera, and I want to see him in the Monsterverse. I know he is not Kong or Godzilla level famous, but Jamie Foxx is back as Electro, so anything can happen. Absolutely anything can happen. I'll go over 5% because 5% is super, super, super low. And remember, in the post credits of Godzilla King of the Monsters, tons of things got referenced, right? So in the post credits of Kong versus Godzilla, I think just about anything is on there. Anything is on there. Absolutely anything could be put in there. And I don't see why and 5% is a very, very, very tiny number. Very, very tiny number. So I will take the over on that. All right, next up. Let's Make Things Dark writes. Not sure if answered already, but what would happen to an unborn child that was snapped, then came back to the mom who passed away during those 5 years? Or people who were in the brink of death caused by some other thing that were snapped and then came back. Well, my guess is you come back in the exact state that you were in. So that's an interesting question, though. Like if you disappeared while something like having some kind of terminal illness, my guess is you come back with that same terminal illness. It's an interesting question about a baby still in its mother, right? A fetus still in the mother. Would one of those be considered by the Infinity Stones to already be an individual person, or would it be seen in connection with the mother? I don't know. That's something we haven't thought about. That's a good question. My guess is an unborn child would still be connected to the mother. So if the mother snapped, the baby goes with her. And then when the mother comes back, when the mother comes back, then the baby comes back too. That's my guess. I'm not sure, but that's my guess. Okay, next up. Good question, though. Let's make things dark. Sergeant Ward writes, "Hey, John, why don't more directors try to be like Clint Eastwood? He doesn't waste money. He doesn't waste time. He doesn't waste numbers of takes. He stays in budget and finishes the film quickly. Clint Eastwood is a great filmmaker and okay actor." Oh, he's a great actor. He's an Oscar-level actor. So, listen, every director has their own way of doing things. Every director has their own way of doing things. And Clint Eastwood isn't the only director who stays on time and stays on budget. A lot of directors do. But yeah, Clint Eastwood will go down as one of the best directors of all time. He's not on the Mount Rushmore, but underneath the Mount Rushmore, there's a great hall of the all-time greats. 20 or 30 of the all-time greats. Maybe not the 4 on Mount Rushmore, and Clint Eastwood belongs in that hall. When you really go down and look through his directorial resume, it's huge and impressive, and he is one of the all-time greats. All right, next up, Cam K writes, "Hey, John, while I do believe they are simply Easter eggs and just a nod to the comics and nothing more, I feel it is important to let you know that there is in fact both a Wonder Man and Grim Reaper Easter egg in episode 2 cartoon intro. Take a closer look. Or take a close peek." I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that all throughout. I mean, I have no reason to doubt what you're saying, Cam. I wouldn't doubt that scattered throughout all MCU stuff are little winks and nods to a lot of different things. But I don't think that and I agree with you. I don't think that's Kevin Feige prematurely tipping his hand into what's to come. I think that is just more Easter egg stuff. So I haven't seen those things myself, Cam, but I totally take your word for it. I totally believe you're probably right about that. All right, next up, Captain Blue Pants writes, "A real Variety headline in Variety headline 1928. First all talking picture starts. Subheadline, only a fad say experts." Ha! Anyway, I love the history of film and eventually got a degree in film studies. Just wanted to say thank you for your documentary on trailers too. Well, thank you so much, Captain Blue Pants, and thanks for checking out my documentary. No, listen, old newspaper headlines are hilarious. You can go down a really deep rabbit hole online if you search up like some of the funniest, dug up legitimate old news headlines. As a matter of fact, The Onion, the satire news thing? The Onion is hilarious. The Onion put out a collection book called Our Dumb Century. Actually, let me see if I can find it. Onion, Our Dumb Century. It is one of the funniest books I have ever owned. It is absolutely hilarious. Let me see if I can just pull up something from it. Yeah, and of course, their images are fake, obviously. Their images are obviously fake images. But I mean, they put together an entire book of fake old historical headlines, right? This was one of my favorite. Set in, what was the year? Whatever year it was. Holy shit, man walks on fucking moon. And then Neil Armstrong, historic first words on moon. Holy living fuck. I love these. If you guys ever have a chance to look up the book, Our Dumb Century, the entire book is all fake Onion style headlines based on real historical events. It is absolutely hilarious. If you get a chance to check it out, I highly, highly recommend that you do. All right, guys, just have time for a couple more here. Shadow Jester writes, "Hey, John, here's why I think there is still a baddie behind Wanda in episode 4. She tells Vision they can't leave. I think her new ability is tied to that place because she's been lied to, gifted power, and being used unknowingly for something there." I disagree. I think you could be right. Okay, we might find out you're right. For now, I don't agree. I think you're reading too much into that right now. I think the most common, obvious interpretation is probably the right one. She's saying we can't leave. Like I created this world. This is where we've got to be. And this is where we are. I don't think that was any tip of the hat to another higher power that she made a deal with But again, I'm saying that only having watched 4 episodes. I may be singing a completely different song, Shadow Jester, after episode 5. So let's come back and revisit it. For now, I disagree. For now, but let's see what transpires. Thanks for sharing that, Shadow. Casey McNatt writes, 1 of 2. The take of the helicopter being the same drone they sent in before Monica gets sucked into that world is not the same drone that gets turned into a helicopter. When Darcy gets to New Jersey, she mentioned they have been sending other drones in. That's true. So that lets us know that there are more of those helicopter drones. So the thing that there could be helicopter drones that have fallen into the bubble that Wanda has only found one of them. That's actually a great point, because somebody brought up in the show earlier that, wait a minute, if the drone that Monica sent in when she first arrived is the drone that Wanda sees, that puts it out of time. How could Darcy then be watching in real time later? Which was a great observation. But that is a great point, Casey. Who says that the drone that Monica sent in is the drone that Wanda found? Maybe it was one of the other drones that got sent in later. Because you're right, they did confirm they had been sending in more drones that weren't falling out of the sky. And they've been getting some kind of data back for it, or none at all. But whatever, they were sending others in. So that is a great observation. Thank you for bringing that up and pointing it out, man. All right, Batman565 writes, hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much, Batman565. My question is, did you get a chance to see the trailer for Superman and Lois? If so, what are your opinions on it? I did. Don't care. Don't care. They've already completely screwed that character. So I have no faith in it whatsoever. No faith. Now, that's not to say that maybe the show won't be great. Maybe we'll hear, remember, I had no faith in that Harley Quinn animated show. Zero faith in that. I thought it looked stupid. And now I love it. I completely love it now. So maybe that'll happen. But right now, to me, the Superman character in the CW verse is the ultimate symbol of how they've botched things. They so disrespected Superman and that character, and they've botched that character. So I don't give a crap what they do in the show. I really don't. And so to me, I look at the trailer, but I'm looking at the trailer. You got to understand, I'm looking at the trailer as an individual who's already completely given up on their take on Superman. So I watch the trailer and I think nothing special here. But again, that doesn't mean the show won't be great, and maybe we'll have to evaluate that later. So right now, I really don't care about their version of Superman, the jobber. Anyway, Chris West writes, hello, John, longtime viewer. Thank you so much for that, Chris. With the whole pandemic, I haven't been able to take my son to the movies for the first time. That sucks. The fun I had with my dad still sticks, especially when he took me to see Star Trek 3. I cried when the Enterprise blew. That was a great moment. I still remember. Obviously I was a lot younger, but that was a big deal. I remember my mom trying to explain to me that the Enterprise blowing up is a big deal. That Enterprise, that ship has been around for a long time to somebody like my parents, right? And that would have been a huge moment. But yeah, we don't have kids yet. So, but one of the things I look forward to being a parent is taking my kids to do what my parents did for me, taking me to the movies. It's one of the most special things ever, Chris, and I hope that you are able to share that experience with your son really soon. All right, last 2 questions, guys. Captain Blue Pants writes, 1 of 2. For the person that asked about Blip versus Snap, it makes sense that within the MCU world would call events the Blip and not the Snap, as no one outside of Avengers would know the specifics of how Thanos wiped them out, i.e. by snapping his fingers. I doubt the Avengers would release info like that specific about the stones, the gauntlet, and time travel to the general public. Does make me wonder how it was reported to the general public, though. I don't know, Captain Blue Pants. What would be the purpose of hiding that? The world just lost half of its population. They want to know what happened and how. I don't see there being any kind of national security risk of the Avengers owe it to the world to tell them, here's what happened. There is this being from another world, and he accumulated these things. His plan was this, and he wiped out half humanity. This is what I don't see why the world wouldn't know. I'm not quite sure why we would assume the world doesn't know. But hey, listen, I don't know why half the terms get applied to common phrases today that they do. So somebody at some point came up with the word blip and they went with it. But to me, it'll always be the snap. All right. Last one we're going to take here today, guys. Then we got to call it a day. And we're almost all caught up anyway. Who Dat 09 writes, "Hey, John, love your show. Thank you so much. What are opinions on Jim Caviezel and the show Person of Interest? If you haven't seen the show, I highly recommend it. I don't watch it, but Person of Interest is one of those shows that I've heard. I know a number of people who have watched the whole thing and really swear by it. And I went and watched like the 1 or 2 episodes of it, and I quite enjoyed it. So at some point, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but at some point I do want to sit down and watch it because it's also got that guy who was in Lost, and I really like that dude. I've heard nothing but good things about it, and at some point I do want to sit down and check it out. And again, like I said, I watched the first episode or 2, and I thought, this is intriguing. But I just never got around to watching it again, so I will watch it at some point. All right, guys, listen. There's not many questions left, but from Cam, Aaron, Toy Box, Dr. Film, and anybody else who still has questions to come, do not worry. On tomorrow's John Campea Show, we will start off with your questions. Yours will be the first one to ask. There's only about 6 or 7 questions left. We'll start with yours and then move on to the new questions from there. And anyway, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. Special thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for bringing his glory and goodness to the show. And a very special thank you to all of you guys who did send in those questions. Number 1, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number 2, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here involved with the channel, thank you guys very, very much for that. Okay, guys, remember, do the 4 main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me, guys. My name's John Campea, and until tomorrow, my friends, bye-bye.